More intimate group. Doesn't change anything, doesn't change the message, doesn't change the importance. But my name's Chris. I'm the owner of Natives of Corkscrew, owner of this property. And one of the things in the last, maybe really the reason I started this 10 years ago, we started this company. And Mike might have been part of some of that, but we started this company 10 years ago with little pine trees. 7,000 pine trees. We had an order for 7,000 1-gallon pine trees 10 years ago. Still today, we've ordered up to, I think, 20,000 plants this year for our company. So this is really, it's pretty amazing too, considering that every year we keep ordering 10 to 15,000 more, and you won't find 10,000 pine trees out here. You'll find, maybe last year we actually ran out of pine trees. That's how many pine trees we've been selling. But I love the message of this because this is the time of year we get these pine trees. That's why we kind of put this event together, was to get the community involved with helping to plant these trees, take some plants home. And really the idea is, the whole reason I started this entire company was because I grew up here. I care about this place. I care about being able to fish. It kind of hurts my heart a little bit to see the impacts to this area. Not with just development. We can say development and be mad at development, or traffic. We can be mad at that. But it's really how we've landscaped has probably hurt me the most in my heart, because I see the disaster it's been causing. I grew up here. Used to be able to fish and catch trout, redfish, snook, catfish. I didn't care what kind of fish I got, actually. But now it's hard to catch a catfish, and that's the one you would catch all the time. And there is a problem happening with the water. There's a problem happening in our community. There's really a problem happening in our country and in Florida throughout. So this message is not just for this area, Fort Myers or Buckingham, but the reason I've done this and started this business was, and the reason I care about it, and I'm very, very, very passionate about this, and not very good at it, honestly. Really, been figuring this out the last 10 years. And I am a Christian too, and I think that that's very important, because I think God has really shown us a natural, balanced ecosystem, the Garden of Eden, and every forest and everywhere you go in the woods, you can say, man didn't do this, this was done on its own. This is a balanced ecosystem. And I started to see the destruction that we've been doing to our waterway and to our landscaping, because we really got away from this natural, organic way of doing things. We now need to water every plant that we put in the ground. We need to fertilize every plant that we put in the ground. We need to do things that are a lot of work, for one, to do all that stuff. It's a lot of waste. It's also a lot of impact. And all these plants that I'm, have behind me or in front of me, all these plants are plants that have a place in Florida, that they don't need the fertilizer, they don't need our help, they just need to get there. And if they get there and we can keep the invasive vegetation out of these areas will thrive, they'll take off. You'll see that your yard will continue to change. You'll see your water bill will go down. You'll see life in your yard and your landscaping. You'll see butterflies. You'll see things that you never even thought were still around. There's 7 million species on this planet, this little blue dot. There's 7 million species. There's 3,000 plants. 1,000 of those plants are considered invasive plants. Those are the plants that aren't from here. Those are the plants that we're mostly planting with, which is oddly strange. We're planting with plants that don't really normally go here, and that's why we're having to put so many inputs into those plants. And that's really, one one of the main things I wanted to say is that is the reason that I want to continue to have these conversations. Bill is our nursery manager, and Bill is here with us. He's here every Saturday, helping retail, helping customers, educating customers. That's what this place is meant to be. This is meant to be an education. It's meant to be, something that inspires you, something that you get to see grow, something that you get to see different, and something that I hope that when at the end of the day, whether you plant this here or you plant it at your house or somewhere else, you get to see that it makes a difference. We learned in third grade we need trees to breathe, but we're taking down trees, at a record pace, and a lot of the vegetation behind me to make room for not just a house, but now a yard that needs water, irrigation, a yard that needs fertilizer, a yard that needs mowed. And one of the worst areas we're doing those things are in these swales that are in the front of our house, where that's considered a conveyance swale. That's considered what is connecting that ditch is connecting to a river or to a stream or to a creek. That water flows there. Everywhere we build up, and then it goes into a swale, and then that swale carries the water to really a waterway that we're in. And that's one of the issues that we have too, because we in these areas, these swale areas, we're actually putting sod that we have to then water. We have to water the swale. We have to mow the swale. And some of this, I think, once more people talk about these kind of things, and we've seen these protests across the country, and we were like, why are we not protesting? Why are we putting sod in the front yard? Or why are we not doing, more things that are helping Florida stay Florida? I grew up here. My kids have grown up here. I want them to continue to be able to see and appreciate this place. That's why we created this place, was so that we can educate, we can show people, we can mess up in landscaping. We're trying to set up good examples of plants. I'm gonna. My wife suggested this, and I did agree. I'm gonna just pass around a few of these plants and talk about them with everybody. This is a Dune sunflower. This is kind of a small plant, and it doesn't look like a sunflower. It just looks like a green leaf kind of plant. But this is a plant that we've been planting on the beach on Captiva, in the sand, in the harshest conditions, no irrigation, and that plant is growing out and thriving and flowering and follows the sun. It's called a sunflower because it follows the sun. And these are the kinds of examples of plants. All these plants that you see are we planted at our house, or we planted, I'll move it on it. Oh, yeah. All these plants that you guys see, these are all plants that I think that can be put in a place in anybody's yard in Southwest Florida and Collier County too. We really are specific to the plants that we're growing, to plants that are meant for this area, for this hardiness zone. Plants have a hardiness zone, meaning how cold can the soil get with, so that they continue to thrive. Obviously, we saw that cold this last year, be, probably the worst cold I've ever seen. In 10 years I've had this business, we were further inland. We did have a frost. It wasn't as cold as long. I mean, it was actually colder here than it was in Alaska, where I used to live. On the same day, the same time, it was colder here than it was in Alaska. And our plants kind of took a beating. We did a recent post recently about Clusia plant. That's a really common shrub that people are using. Developers are using it all over the place because they think it's a cheap, easy fix. And that is kind of the problem that we've had with landscaping locally, is that we think cheap, easy fix. I think that it's really just because we've, given out the wrong information, and, we didn't know that there were other things that actually work just as well that are, cheap, better fixes, and easy as well. I've done some comparisons in a conventional lawn and a conventional landscaping that is all sod and irrigation. You're almost double, triple the cost from the initial install of irrigation, from the initial install of pallets of sod. If you've never seen a pallet sod truck, that thing weighs 100,000 pounds that truck does with sod. Every block of sod is like 3,000 pounds. You can only fit one in the back of your truck, and then it looks like a lowrider. You go back, and we're transporting that all over the place. We're, half of our natural areas in Florida are these single-family resident lots that we're going to start seeing this more rapid change toward if we don't have more of a vocal message about, different things that we can do that don't really change anything in our lives. I don't believe. If anything, it starts to add more things to it. It gives you more time to do things. My dad had a 1 acre lot of St. Augustine grass, which I think is worse than concrete to have. And he would mow it every Saturday and Sunday. And we'd see our boat sitting there, like, Dad, we got to take out the boat. No, I got to mow the lawn. Every week he's mowing the lawn. And the boat was actually breaking because we weren't taking the boat out. Because especially in the summertime when you want to go out, in the wintertime you don't want to go out because it's cold. But in the summertime you do, and he's like, every week you got to mow your lawn. And it was the St. Augustine. And then you got to, put fungicides or insecticides on it and stuff. And I'm like, I wish I could get my dad's life back. That time that was spent, because it was months on a mower to mow it. And that is common. There's nothing wrong with mowing a lawn. I just think that my issue with conventional landscaping right now is the waste of water. We're watering roads, we're watering sidewalks, we're not even watering plants, we're watering the sky. I've seen so many geysers in Collier and Lee County, but I really care about the water. That is like what I care. That's almost the biggest reason for a lot of these plants is to reduce our water, create habitat. Nobody wants to eat salad, only as their only meal 3 times a day. They want diversity. And that's, kind of the mindset with this. Hey guys, good to see you. But I don't even know, I feel like I do this a lot, circling. Okay, thank you guys. Thank you. But I was talking to Bill a few weeks ago because I was asking him, hey, are we getting any retail customers? And our company is slam busy. We are doing so much work in Naples and the beach, but the part that we're not really getting business in is the residential customer. We're not getting that customer out here. And so that is the person who can start to make the change the quickest, because mostly we're dealing with developers that we don't have an ability to change anything. The only person that has the ability to change anything is an individual in their own retrospect to their yard or how they live their life, too. But, and so I look at that, we've been hurting getting retail business here, and not as a company, like money-wise, just hurting because it's hurting me a little bit to think that we have such a good message that we want to get out, that needs to get out, that we need to that benefits us all, with water and plants connect every one of us. Like, we could be whatever political party, whatever, and we're like, we all are breathing the same air. We're all, connected to plants and water and the sea, and we love going to Maine to see trees. And we love going to the beach to see the beach, not see 1,000 boats out there, And so that's the message that we're trying to get out there, is that everybody retail, everybody residential can do a little bit of things that make a few more adjustments to your yard. And maybe none of us even have irrigation. I know Donna's yard, we actually planted her yard. It looked something like this. We planted it in Bonita. It has a canal in the back, and it has a swale in the front that we actually planted with sod. Then we had to come back and plant with aquatic plants, which I'm going to show you in a second. No irrigation on her yard whatsoever. She didn't want irrigation. We actually planted it in October. It was a brand new build as well. It was a new construction. I think it was a home before. Your home or no?
Yes.
It was your home, okay. And then she built a sustainable home with a sustainable landscaping that the swale in the front, it's like a decline like this, and I can't even imagine that the county would want you to go mow. You'd be tipping over on a mower. I don't even know you push through it. When I bought my house in San Carlos Park, I had that big swale, and I was like, and in the summertime, you go to look at it, you're like, I'm not mowing that. It's filled with water and it's the nastiest thing. And then I started kind of replacing the sod with plants like this, and just letting them take off. Aquatic plants don't all have to be this high, but a lot of them are low. But the idea was to do something and I don't have to keep mowing, so I can have time with my family, was the idea with some of that. But all these plants you could put in your ditch, whether there's water there or not. If it's a ditch, it's going to do well. You plant it in the summertime, this will thrive, and then you'll just see this kind of like natural recruitment of the same plants in that area. But I did give you guys all this piece of paper, some of you guys, and one of the things that our company is going to start doing to highlight more, I think, like more emphasis on these native plants and Florida-friendly landscaping, is the Florida stack sheets. The Florida stack sheets were written back in 1993, and I don't know what happened to them in 1993. I was in freshman in high school, I think, at that time down here. I'd never heard of Florida stack sheets or Florida-friendly landscaping. This is still relatively new to me. But we have great people in our company that have really made this something amazing to kind of see everybody else's gifts, and I can just sometimes just watch people grow and watch plants grow, and it's been pretty amazing to see. But the Florida stack sheets that I have on this piece of paper, and I actually used it on Donna's property because the county was saying that she was needing to put irrigation and she was needing to put sod on her property. And I said, well, it says in the Florida stack sheets, if you're trying to adopt the things that conserve water, protect the environment, are adaptable to local conditions, and are drought tolerant, if you're doing things like that protect the waterway as well and reduce stormwater, then you don't have to listen to the local government or the city when they come and tell you that you have to do something. They can't prohibit you from adopting and instilling Florida-friendly landscaping principles. That is what the Florida stack sheets were meant for. Doesn't matter if you're in the HOA. It doesn't matter if you're in San Carlos Park like me and Linda, which you have no rules, which is not a great thing either, but 1,000 people parking in their yard as their landscaping. But the idea is that these Florida stack sheets in 1993, they've been completely buried. If you ask anybody, probably even in our state representatives, they probably wouldn't even know what it means. But what it means to me is we have some, I think, a bag, basically. We have an ability to do something without being told we can't do something, because we already have Florida stack sheet that already said this supersedes any local government from prohibiting you from doing something you don't want to do that is against Florida stack sheets. So you do have to comply with it. It's right plant, right place. Plants grow. Plants are upland. There's upland plants, transitional plants, and there's wetland plants. So if you think of from a beach to a dune, or if you think from a swamp to an oak hammock, what the difference is there's a gradual slope. Water drains to a low point. That becomes a wetland. The plants way above the wetland, or they have the highest, like they're far from the water table. They are the upland plants. Upland plants don't need water. They don't need irrigation from us. They get it all from the ground somehow. Some of these plants, sea grape, Simpson stopper, and Florida privet, swamp privet, these plants, you actually plant these. We've been planting these on the beach with no irrigation, right in sand too. No organics, no overhead irrigation. And all of these plants, as you can see, are all still green. There are plants that you can see at our nursery that were affected by this cold, the cold that we had. Our neighbor down the road, he's like, hey, Chris, do you have any clusia? And I said, no, why would you, no, I go, no, we don't sell clusia, it's not native. And I go, but can I get you to do Simpson stopper instead of clusia? And he said, yeah, but I got a low area too. And so I said, okay, well, let's plant Simpson stopper in the high area where it's dry. And then let's plant, this is called Florida privet, which that tells you it's a native if it has Florida in the name. Native to this area. I said, let's plant Florida privet in the low area, and then we'll put Simpson stopper in the high area. And if you go down the end of this road, and it's a house on the left, all the other neighbors, even the builders that build those houses over there, put clusia all around the perimeter of their property and across the street. And clusias were already 4 to 5 foot tall. And now if you go down there, you'll see every one of them is brown as could be. All the clusias are brown as could be. And never did I tell the guy that, his name's Carlos, never did I tell him, hey, it's freeze tolerant. I didn't tell him that, because that's a silly thing to say in Florida. I told him I said it's dry, you can eat the berries, it's a butterfly plant. What is clusia? Why? He goes, oh, well, my wife wants it. I'm like, well, have your wife come down here and let me talk to her. Well, she doesn't speak English. I'm like, well, that doesn't matter. Then we can do Google Translate. But he ended up going with the Simpson stopper and the swamp privet, and he planted them, and I, gave him some education, and all of them are green. All of them look just like this. Not one of them shriveled, not one of them died, no browning, nothing. And it all took off on his property. And it's nothing because of me. None of this stuff is because of me at all, I promise. It's all because I'm learning about these plants. I'm learning where these plants go. My background as a wetland scientist, I care about observing, what grows where naturally. Because if it can do it naturally, like in the woods, all these woods around us, they don't have any irrigation, but you can start to see that if a plant can do it there, then we can find the right place to put it, somewhere to use it. And a lot of our landscaping and stuff is very boring because we don't do that. We haven't done that. And I think we're personally destroying creation and putting man's, finger on stuff that is kind of a disastrous thing. We're destroying creation instead of, creating in our own property and stuff. But this is not a great time of year to plant too. I'm just looking at the last thing that I said. I did put all these plants here that I think, for one, I have in my yard, this is another beach plant. You can plant this right in the beach, and this is going to take off. We're actually planting the beaches now, because plants don't only provide oxygen, they're also doing erosion control. And we're planting, something like 200,000 plants at the beach because we are trying to prevent the sand from washing back in under people's houses that they didn't have sand there before because they wanted a view. Now they said, hey, can you put the plants back in? A lot of stuff in Bonita, they make them take out the seawalls instead of leave the mangroves. I don't understand that. Mangroves are the best nutrient uptake thing, and it shows that people really don't care about the water, but we need to start caring about the water, the fish. Me and Mike fish, and fishing, we don't fish as much because we weren't catching as many fish, or we had bad weather trips. I know that. It's been that long. It's been that long for me. But that's really the, my reason why. I did want to finish off with this because I think it's very relevant, and I, whenever I get together with our staff and have our community meetings, I always try to look for a scripture verse that pertains to plants and pertains to animals and pertains to creation and kind of our role. I think we're all supposed to be stewards of land. We're supposed to be land stewards and taking care of the animals and taking care of the plants. But it says in Job 12:7, it says, "But ask the beasts, which are the animals, and they will teach you, the birds of the heaven, and they will tell you, or the bushes of the earth, and they will teach you. And then the fish of the sea they will declare to you, and his hand is the life of every living thing and the breath of all mankind." That's really what has been like my goal in at this place, is really to just observe the animals, observe the plants, see why something, even out here, we're trying to grow plants. Well, we're wondering, hey, is there a water issue? Is there a fertilizer issue? Is there Did we plant it wrong? We're looking at the birds, we're looking at the plants, and really all this is meant to create life somewhere else too. This is habitat. These plants provide habitat for a lot of animals that don't have it in your yard and landscape, because we've really changed how we landscape and stuff. But that is all I have. I don't know. That's my kind of closing. So I'm working on that part.
When is the best time to plant?
The best time to plant is in May, April, May, June. That's when you start to get a lot of rain, when you can plant things and not need irrigation. If you do plant this time of year, I suggest heavy mulch on the top, water it after that. Make sure you plant the plant, and we're going to do some planting today. When you are planting if you guys are going to help with planting some trees, when you plant the plant in the soil or in the container, in the ground at your house or wherever, you don't want to be planting the part that's above the soil. You want to have that about level, and Bill's going to kind of maybe give a demonstration about that when we start to plant, just to make sure we're planting these right, because we could be planting them and think we're doing great things, but we could be killing the plant too. So how we plant it is really important. And like I said, we would plant this, then we'd put mulch on top of it that it'd still be able to breathe. And then I like to water it at that point, because then I think that mulch is helping keep the moisture in that plant, and that plant's going to thrive better. Once these plants are 30 days planted, 30 days in the ground, they don't need really anything. If you really see, maybe it goes 45 days, but if you're watching your yard and watching your plants, I would think that after 45 days, if you lose it, we did something wrong, or we got you a bad plant. That rarely happens. I rarely see that happen. Like I said, we plant tens of thousands of plants. Never do I get a call, hardly from anybody, saying that I gave them a bad plant. And they never call and say, hey, all my plants died, either, because it's not anything that we're doing. It's really just trying to mimic what was already here and already how this area already was, and really trying to match that and trying to, reciprocate that. But if that helps to answer the question about planting day. Anybody else have a question?
When is the best time to prune after the winter time?
Bill, will you answer that? It was a question about when to prune after winter time. When's the best time to prune?
I've been telling everybody to wait until late March 15th, but since we've got cold coming up again this week, Tuesday morning is supposed to be 39 out around Lehigh here. It may be a wise idea to wait at least until the end of March. What's going to happen is that if you prune anything, it triggers the plant hormonally to start regrowing. And all that new tender growth is going to be susceptible to any cold that we get. So, some of the plants are starting to bud and starting to grow anyway, but why push that? Let them kind of rest and go through their own thing for a while, and then when things do start to regrow, then you can really be sure what needs to be pruned out.
I just saw an article about Disney, and Disney had a lot of loss with landscaping, truckloads and truckloads and dumpsters of landscaping loss because of the freeze. They're so far inland, and I bet if you go look at their woods are fine. I bet if they would have copied more of their woods, they would have been in a better situation. A lot of our plants that did look like they're dying, we actually knew that they were going to look like this. Some of these we brought in recently, we know that they're also going to flush back out and be really healthy plants again. We're starting to see that. But some of the stuff that Disney's planted, and it is going to be lost forever. It's going to have to be replaced. What a waste. I really hate, we really try to be intentional in our conversation with people to say, hey, don't put a cypress tree in the middle of your yard, put a pine tree there, or put a stopper there, or do something different, because you want to do things that are going to be there later. We planted 10,000 plants. We're hoping that there's 10 every year. We've been doing that. We're hoping that these plants are now 20 foot tall, 30 foot tall. Some of the oldest trees that we have out here are maybe 3-4 years old. I did want to point out one more thing. So everything you see here, I'm more I'm native, but I'm also Florida friendly landscaping. You know, so there's a lot of Florida friendly plants that they actually attribute to being, you know, okay in your property. And so not everything here is native. And I don't necessarily need everything to be native or want that either. I want less irrigation. I want less labor. I want less mowing. I want less grass clippings going in the ditch and going in the waterway. That's what I want to see more of. And so some of these plants, like this is a loquat tree. This is a great tree. This thing did great in the cold this recently. This tree is also the tree right in front of the blue tractor. If you see the blue tractor there, it's got fruit, awesome edible, almost like passion fruit. You know, tasting fruit off of it. But I'm a big fan of also not just doing everything native, but also doing things that make sense that maybe you get to appreciate. Maybe you get to, you know, go pull a passion fruit off a vine. Passion fruit's not native, but it gives you a lot of, you know, it gives you something good to appreciate out of, you know, something that grows in your property. I don't understand why people put so many plants in their property that they can't eat or enjoy or look at, or, you know, because we don't really spend a lot of time outside. We're kind of like most people, or there's been this like maybe this environmental, like we're kind of afraid of the snakes and the bees and the birds and stuff, is, you know, or the heat or the mosquitoes, which I understand that part. But really, I think it's because our lawns are not that inspiring. Our yards aren't that inspiring. We don't feel like it makes a difference. And I think that our yards make a big difference. I think because they can be a message to somebody else. Donna's yard. Donna's had some people comment about your yard. Yeah. And her yard is across from like St. Augustine, sloped right into the waterway, basically. Has to be cut probably, and she hasn't seen a summer yet with her yard. But a lot of work on a steep slope to mow a yard. That's not easy work to do. But like I said, the idea is to all of us doing a little bit is a whole lot if all of us start to do something that's a little bit of a change. You know, if we can reduce our irrigation at our house, you know, maybe 25%, well, that's going to have a pocket savings. It's going to have a water savings. I was driving down here today, and I couldn't believe how many roads that were full of the irrigation water, just because nobody, you know, comes on in the middle of the night. If they're not up, they don't ever see it. I bet if you ask those people, hey, do you know your irrigation's going middle of the road and, you know, hitting every car, they would maybe care. I would hope, you know, don't we recycle because we care a little bit? I think that recycling isn't really the same, but I do think that what a waste. And water is being wasted at astronomical rates. And there was a lady down the road from us the other day, her water was leaking, and I was timing it. I was wanting to see how long it would take for a gallon to go through. It was every 3 minutes. She was going through a gallon, and there was a broken line between the house and the water meter. And I did the calculation on that, and it was 15,000 gallons of water per month. And she saw it. The only reason she noticed that was even happening because she saw her water bill go, you know, skyrocketed, and she ended up having to pay $2,000 or $3,000 to get it all repaired. But she wouldn't have caught that. Most people don't catch that kind of stuff. Most people don't care about 14,000 gallons of water a month leaving their house. But if it was a little bit more expensive water, maybe we would, I guess. Maybe because we don't value it the same because we consider it cheap, a cheap commodity. But that's really all I have. Anybody else have any more questions? Who's here for planting some pine trees?